In the near future, sinkholes erupt across the globe, triggering explosions that throw society into chaos. Massive creatures called reapers emerge from these chasms, relentlessly pursuing humans to kill them. Conventional weapons prove useless against them, leaving even the military powerless. Eventually, reports from high-altitude regions reveal that the monsters freeze at elevations above 8,000 feet. This discovery drives survivors to migrate to elevated areas to rebuild their lives. 3 years later, in Colorado, Hunter resides in a small settlement nestled in the Rocky Mountains. One day, curiosity leads him to venture beyond the 8,000 feet safety threshold. He doesn't get far before he encounters a reaper, forcing him into a desperate retreat. The creature nearly captures him, but Hunter manages to cross back to safety just in time. Shaken, he returns to Lost Gulch Refuge, home to 193 survivors. His father, Will, reprimands him for leaving the safe zone, citing both the dangers of the monsters and Hunter's fragile lungs. Hunter defends himself, saying he just wanted to find more people, but Will insists he cannot risk losing him as he lost his wife. Later, while hunting with Katie, Will shares his concerns. Katie sympathizes but notes that as the community's only child, Hunter naturally craves companionship. However, Will believes his son is more interested in returning to the last place he saw his mother. Elsewhere, scientist Nina is testing bullets against a piece of reaper hide but finds they remain ineffective. That evening, Will hears her continuing her experiments and grows frustrated, haunted by memories of the mission that claimed his wife's life while she was working with Nina. His thoughts are interrupted when he hears Hunter coughing, prompting him to rush to replace the filter on the boy's breathing machine. The episode subsides, but the realization hits hard. It was the last filter they had. Will pores over maps, contemplating the peril of crossing the line to search for more. On Hunter's birthday, Will secures the refuge's final box of mac and cheese to prepare a special treat for his son. As they cook, Hunter questions why they no longer use the radio. Will explains that electricity must be conserved, so they now rely on flags to communicate with neighboring refuges. Hunter laments the loss of real communication, deeming it important. That night, Hunter's coughing worsens again, leaving Will no choice but to administer an injection. Once Hunter is asleep, Will approaches Nina, declaring his intention to head to Boulder in search of filters. He insists he has found a safe route, but Nina dismisses his claim, knowing the area better than he does. It turns out Nina's former laboratory is in Boulder. Will urges her to join him, citing her extensive knowledge of the Reapers and her survival of a previous trip. Nina counters by reminding him that she only survived by luck, while his wife didn't. Determined, Will mentions a mine through the mountains, but Nina argues it could be even more dangerous, as the monsters might corner them. She still refuses to accompany him. After Will leaves, Nina tinkers with a compass, but the memories of Will's wife overwhelm her, leaving her in tears. Meanwhile, Will enlists a neighbor to watch over Hunter while he stocks up on weapons at a local store. Katie appears, announcing her decision to join him despite his objections. Nina ultimately relents as well, mocking Katie for her inexperience and implying she'll slow them down. Before departing, Will bids farewell to Hunter, promising to return. The boy solemnly reminds him that his mother made the same promise. As the trio sets out, Nina's hostility toward Katie persists until Will intervenes, demanding civility. Nina explains that Reapers emit high-intensity bioelectromagnetic pulses, which her upgraded compass can detect within a half-mile radius. After hours of trekking, they reach the Elba Fire Road and the 8,000-foot line. With the compass confirming no nearby threats, they descend into uncharted territory. Not long after, they come across abandoned vehicles and begin scavenging for supplies. They retrieve flares, ammunition, and even a grenade launcher, which Katie surprisingly knows how to operate. Nina discovers a Reaper scale and takes a sample. When Katie tries to hurry her, an argument breaks out. Nina accuses Katie of trying to get romantically involved with Will. Enraged, Katie shoves Nina against a truck, pointing out that her reckless actions cost Katie her closest friend, Will's wife. The women break into a heated brawl, exchanging punches until Will intervenes to pull them apart before the situation spirals out of control. Pressing onward, the group stumbles upon a herd of horses grazing in the forest, an unexpected discovery that hints the Reapers are targeting humans exclusively. Eventually, they arrive at the Alta Vista ski area, where they plan to use the chairlift to traverse the terrain and safely reach the mines. Suddenly, Nina's compass picks up the presence of a Reaper nearby, and the group watches in alarm as something begins thrashing through the trees. Acting quickly, Will scrambles up the lift tower to activate the backup generators while the women remain on the ground to cover him. As the Reaper draws closer, Katie panics and fires a few grenades. The resulting explosions, however, fail to harm the creature. Will successfully activates the generator, and Nina switches it on just in time to climb onto a chairlift. Will joins her moments later. While ascending, The duo fires at the approaching monster, desperately trying to keep it at bay. Katie, meanwhile, begins scaling the tower in an attempt to reach the chairlift. The Reaper leaps onto the cables, causing the chairs to sway dangerously. Timing her move, Katie jumps toward a chair but misses, forcing Will to catch her midair. As Nina's ammunition runs dry, the creature shakes the cables again, sending all three of them plummeting to the ground. They immediately take off running and manage to cross the 8,000 feet safety threshold just as the monster closes in. As night falls, the group decides to rest at the ski resort. Over a shared drink, Nina reflects on the Reaper's behavior, noting that they exterminated 95% of the human population without resting or feeding. Predators kill for sustenance, yet these creatures slaughter humans seemingly for sport, sparing other animals entirely. This unsettling observation leads her to speculate whether the Reapers were deliberately unleashed to eradicate humanity. Later, as the women sleep, Will revisits the memory of his final conversation with his wife, who had placed her faith in Nina's expertise to uncover a way to defeat the Reapers. At dawn, the trio reaches the mine where Will once worked. He explains that while both ends of the tunnel are above 8,000 feet, the lower levels dip below the safety line, sparking unease among his companions. The tunnel's poor ceiling poses a risk of creature infiltration, and Nina's compass will be useless underground. Despite their reservations, Nina and Katie have little choice but to follow Will. Equipped with construction helmets for lighting, they venture into the dark tunnels, moving in tense silence for hours. Their progress halts abruptly when they encounter a cave-in blocking the main tunnel. Will announces they must descend to level 7, which requires passing 1,000 yards below the safety line. Startled by bats along the way, the trio steels themselves and takes the stairs down to the new tunnel, hastening their pace to minimize the danger. Before long, an ominous sound echoes through the tunnel, and they hastily cover their helmet lights. It's too late, a Reaper has spotted them. They break into a desperate sprint, with Katie occasionally launching grenades to hinder the monster's pursuit. Obstructions from abandoned machinery slow the creature down, but Will's gunfire proves ineffective. Spotting a hole in the wall, they squeeze inside, and Will fires at the rocks to widen the space for all three to hide. The Reaper's glowing tail probes into the opening, prompting Will to throw a flare to distract it. The light reveals an alternate escape route in the opposite wall, spurring the group to frantically clear rocks to crawl through. Will is the last to follow, narrowly evading the Reaper's tail. Emerging into another tunnel, Katie is immediately ambushed by a Reaper that impales her with its tail and drags her away despite Will's frantic attempt to save her. Heartbroken, Will and Nina press on, finding a ladder and quickly climbing it as the Reaper closes in. They escape the mine just in time, reaching safe ground above the 8,000 feet line. Resuming their journey, the pair encounters a goat, pausing briefly to pet it before finding an abandoned house to shelter for the night. Inside, they discover boxes of mac and cheese, which they cook for dinner. Will mentions that it's Hunter's favorite meal, and the two discuss Nina's former lab. Nina shares her hope that it may hold chemicals capable of making bullets lethal to the monsters, theorizing that the Reaper's electrically charged scales could be vulnerable to the right type of ammunition. Will remains skeptical, struggling with the notion that his wife's death might have been in vain. The next morning, they take a truck from the house to speed their passage through a town now dominated by wildlife. Eventually, they reach the hospital and locate the much-needed filters on the top floor. However, their relief is short-lived. A Reaper bursts through a wall, forcing them to flee through crumbling corridors. The creature's claws and tail wreak havoc as Will and Nina dodge falling debris. When the Reaper grabs Will with its tail, Nina attacks it with a fire axe until it releases him. Thinking quickly, she opens a gas canister, creating a foggy cover. Inspired, Will waits for the Reaper to approach before igniting oxygen tanks with a shot, triggering an explosion that hurls the monster out of a window. Unsure whether it's dead or merely stunned, the two hastily leave. Though Will is eager to return home, Nina persuades him to help her reach her lab to complete her experimental bullets. As they drive away in the truck, the Reaper regains consciousness. Shortly after, they arrive at the lab, and Nina begins mixing the chemicals while Will keeps a lookout. As he roams the lab, he stumbles upon a photograph that reveals Nina had a family she's never spoken about. Overcome with emotion, Nina breaks down, confessing that on the day the Reapers first emerged, she had chosen to work instead of attending her son's soccer game. The weight of her guilt for not being with her family haunts her, and she admits to feeling responsible for Will's wife's death. Will reassures her that it wasn't her fault, offering her some comfort. Eventually, Nina finishes creating her experimental bullet and tests it on a piece of Reaper hide, but it doesn't work. Frustrated, she urges Will to return to his son while she stays behind to continue experimenting. either until she finds a solution or is taken by the Reapers. Will reluctantly drives off in the truck, but Nina remains resolute, determined to try one last chemical mix she hadn't considered before. Meanwhile, Will's truck blows a tire, flipping it onto its side. When he regains consciousness, he hears the approach of a Reaper. He kicks out the window and escapes, but his exhaustion and the steep incline hinder his progress. Just as he nears the safe line, a second Reaper appears, blocking his escape. In a desperate attempt to survive, Will opens fire, but the bullets are useless. Just as all hope seems lost, Nina arrives, firing her new bullets. The projectiles cause violent bursts of smoke and electricity, confirming her theory. Nina quickly eliminates the Reapers, even as they try to flee. Afterward, Nina collects a piece of the Reaper's body, revealing mechanical parts inside, confirming that the monsters are actually robots. When Will asks who could have sent them, Nina speculates that aliens might be the masterminds behind the Reapers. The two return to their refuge, where Will is reunited with Hunter, vowing never to leave him again. Nina raises a pirate flag to announce her discovery, attracting survivors from surrounding communities who gather to learn how to craft the special bullets. Armed with the new weaponry, the survivors begin systematically hunting down the Reapers and reclaiming the land. One night, while gazing through a telescope, Will and Nina notice 3 mysterious lights approaching Earth, signaling that the battle for survival is far from over. The end? Or is it? Okay, that's enough. First off, this movie gives me serious déjà vu. It's like a poorly orchestrated version of Tomorrow War, played by Anthony Mackie's counterpart, Chris Pratt. That movie was really awesome, perfectly directed, and even had a thrilling climax. So their thinking was maybe good, but they should have involved the aliens who dropped them directly to the bottom of Earth, and more motive should have been revealed as to why they stay below 8,000 feet and do not attack other animals. At higher altitudes, Earth's magnetic field weakens since intensity of currents circulating in the Earth's crust due to core gradually attenuates, making it less prominent to be detected at higher altitudes. So this means no interference in their electric shielding, which makes the robot wild animals near invulnerable. So the answer is obvious: it's a programmed if condition. If elevation less than 8,000 kilometers, stop and retreat.